all of you have your cell phones off and and speak clearly into the mic so that we make sure we have it. We are live. Go ahead.
Right. I'd like to call to order the Town of Pembroke Park Charter Meeting, Review Meeting, September 19th at 6:11. Everyone stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Ms. Cunningham? Ms. Walker? Here. Ms. Weber?
Here.
Vice Chair Schrader?
Here.
And Chair Buchanan is not here at the present time.
Are there any deletions or changes to the agenda?
No, sir, not at this time.
Okay, I'd like to hear a motion for approval of last month's meeting.
I'll make the motion.
Roll call.
Motion made by Ms. Weber, seconded by Ms. Cunningham. Ms. Weber?
Yes.
Ms. Walker?
Yes.
Ms. Cunningham?
Yes.
Vice Chair Schrader?
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0.
There is no old business. We'll be discussing new business.
The attorney will go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, if I may. May I?
You may.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. My name is Brian Sherman. I'm one of the partners at Gorin Sheriff Duty in Ezreal. I have the privilege of being here tonight to give you the presentation for the discussion on the two items that you have under item 7, which is discussion of possible action regarding when a commission seat is considered vacant, how it will be filled, and also whether certain town officials should be considered charter officers who report directly to the town commission. So what I've prepared for you is two handouts that I have for you. So the first handout is just a single sheet of paper, and this is actually what you have in your charter that is relevant to these two particular topics that we have tonight. What I also have prepared is the second one in the style of a PowerPoint slide. It is front and back on each page. Is what we have here is I've taken the relevant provisions, so it's just more of a reference guide from a few different other cities that have a lot of different other styles. That includes Pembroke Pines, some cities that we represent and some cities that we don't. We have Pembroke Pines, North Lauderdale, Cooper City, and Margate. I've included in here for you. So what I'm going to do is kind of go through what you have and as far as what other cities have. And as far as, of course, within the legal limit, you can make the discussion and recommendation as to each of these different items. So with the first item that we have under 7.1 is as far as filling the vacancy. So a few things to keep in mind as we have this discussion. Again, there's no action you have to take tonight, whether it be a final decision. You can, as far as, making a voter recommendation. And of course, later on, once you have the entire charter in front of you, or be able to review or ask questions or make, edits and deletions at that time. Really what we're looking for is a consensus, a direction on which way your recommendation might go. So when we come back with a full and final document, well, not final, a full document for your review and edit, that we can go through each of those sections with you and get your comments as we move these items forward. So when it comes to vacancies, obviously you elect your town commission and something happens. It happens all the time. Unfortunately, I know one of the commissioners in Walton Manor has recently passed away. Accidents happen. Sometimes suspensions happen by whether it be malfeasance or other or nonfeasance, as far as the governor can do that in certain situations. So vacancies on the board occur. So it's a matter of what's going to cause those vacancies. How do you fill them? So as we look at these different aspects, because some of the charters allow the city commission or the town commission to govern some of these different sanctions or remove members. Some only leave it to the state or under state law as far as removal of members. When you have a vacancy, let's just say somebody doesn't want to do it anymore. Let's just say they turn around and quit. That's happened before as well, whether it be on a certain item or they don't want to, they realize all the different reporting they have to do, or maybe they decide to move out of state or at least move out of the jurisdiction. Those are a number of ways that vacancies can be created. So when you look at it as far as when that seat is actually vacant, you have generally two ways to fill that seat. The commission can make an appointment, or you have a special election. And there are other ways as far as, do it, but those are by far the two most popular. As we go through different provisions, you'll be able to see that some of them actually have time requirements, whether I think it was about 120 days. If there's like less than 120 days left in the term until the next election, the commission doesn't appoint anyone, and the electorate goes ahead and fills that. If it's more than 120 days, then the commission will can still appoint, but then that person only serves the remaining part of that term. Obviously, if someone gets elected, they serve for 1 year, and let's say it's a 4-year term, then whoever gets appointed will be the 3 years. Sometimes they'd rather have it could be the opposite, whereas if you can appoint only for a short period of time and you have to have a special election. It's important to look at that and really decide, because when you have a special election, the city has to pay for it. So, and that's a function of between the local government and the supervisor of elections. So when you have that to call, going out, and there's a lot of different costs. It depends on the supervisor of elections. We've handled them before in our firm. I know others might have more information. So if you have specific questions, I'll be able to come back with more answers on exactly how that works. But for purposes of today, just know that if it is going to be a special election, generally the city is going to need to pay for that election. When you have the general election, then you could be putting everything onto the general ballot. And I don't know if there's a specific cost. There's not going to be a special cost to the city, I can say. So that's kind of one thing as far as, vacancies and how to look at it. So that kind of takes us through the first two items that we have. So that's why the first thing here is we have for the city of Pembroke Pines.
Can you, excuse me, can
sure.
you run through what we currently have now?
Oh, absolutely. So what you have now, if you look at section 11, it says that if a vacancy occurs, commissioners may fill the vacancy within 60 days by resolution until the next general election, and it only takes a majority vote in order to fill that vacant seat. In the event the remaining commissioners fail to fill the vacancy as appointment, then upon application of any commissioner, 10 days notice shall be given for the purpose of holding a special election. So that's what you have right now as far as vacancies are concerned. So it's that 60 days, they can fill it by resolution. Now, it's important as far as resolution is because that's going to take just a majority of quorum.
Of the remaining commissioners.
Right, of the remaining commissioners. Now, when I say quorum, as long as you have a quorum for a meeting. So let's just say you have the 5-member commission. What you have, because it's by resolution, so it's the requirements to pass a resolution is what govern. And which means if you have a 5-member board, one person resigns, you have a 4-member board. At the next meeting, they want to appoint Brian Sherman, the next commissioner, and they put that on as properly noticed by resolution. But at that meeting, only 3 of the 4 commissioners show up. And if that item passes, and if by all other means a resolution can pass by majority of the board, that means 2 can vote over the 1, and that person's now appointed, regardless of what the 4th person wanted to do. Now, you'll see in other provisions that there are certain requirements that might require a supermajority, which is that 4/5 vote, or the language when you see requires an affirmative vote of the full commission. Though that language is specific and it is powerful for that exact situation that I described, to make sure that the entire commission or the remaining commission makes that decision, not just quorum of that particular meeting.
Now, is that currently what they have in the town here?
What they have right now is that the commission can fill it by resolution, and that's all it takes is a resolution of the city commission, town commission, excuse me.
So, but does the commissioners vote?
Yes, the commissioners vote, but there's no supermajority requirement.
2-1 or 3-2? It goes.
That goes. So that's really, or again, as it says here, but that if they can't make a decision, then it goes to a special election. Some cities, as you'll see as we go through it, require a special election or require, given on the timeframes. Here, you only have a special election if the commission can't make a decision. And then at that point, that person wants to become elected, then they fill out the remaining term, and then the general election, whatever the cycle comes out to be, comes out to be. So in the first page, well, page 2, really, you have Pembroke Pines. It says that it becomes vacant upon death, resignation, or removal for office by any manner. Then it goes into when an office can be forfeited. And again, that's for as prescribed by the charter, as may be amended, is convicted of a felony, or fails to attend 4 consecutive regular meetings of the commission unless they're excused. So when you look at that, that's when someone forfeits their office. That's also when a vacancy is created. That's why you have the different sections here. And there's a hearing that the city commission will actually hold in Pembroke Pines when they're going to be removed for forfeiting the actual seat versus one of the natural vacancies, such as the resignation or death, as we said in that first section. Then the next slide basically goes through how the commission will operate if it is for filling the vacancies. It says if a vacancy occurs on the city commission that's hiring the remaining members of the city commission by majority vote, appoint the qualified individual on an interim basis, and they should still and shall adopt a resolution setting forth the process of appointing the interim member of the city commission. It talks about how if it's the mayor, how that would work as well, making sure that the duties of the mayor are covered. In the event of a death or resignation, they shall, by majority vote, elect one of the commissioners to serve as vice mayor. And then also you have the extraordinary vacancies that the governor can make an interim commission appointment. So that's how the city of Pembroke Pines will do that. Now, when you go to the next one, Margate has something similar as far as the natural vacancies. And again, I know I'm kind of going through this, but that's why I created this. This is, again, more of a reference material for you. Then they also have their forfeiture of office as well. Again, if you lack qualification, if you're convicted of a crime, they have something in there specifically for the code of ethics and the hearing that they must go through as far as the forfeiture, because you have a public hearing. You can't just do that. You have to go through, and it's a quasi-judicial hearing, generally speaking, and there's evidence presented, and they vote as to all these different items. So obviously, if you're going through the forfeiture of office proceeding, it can be highly contentious. But you need to have that, or if you're going to have that in the charter, have it spelled out, because the city attorney absolutely opines as when these hearings take place, which are rare, but have occurred. As far as the filling of vacancies, you can have the appointment, as you can see on the next slide, by a majority vote of the remaining members, and that person shall serve until the next regularly scheduled city election. Then it says, if you look later on, it says the city commission shall call a special election if they're unable to agree after 3 regular meetings. Then the city commission shall call a special election for purpose of filling that vacancy. So that's a little bit different, obviously, than Pembroke Pines. The different than you is they say you have to at least try for 3 meetings, whereas yours basically just says if they can't make a decision, then you go to the special election. So there's no right or wrong way to do it. It's just a matter of putting those checks and balances in place for exactly what you feel is best for the town. The quorum requirements and then extraordinary vacancies. Cooper City has, again, something similar, but there you can see their forfeiture of office is much smaller than the other cities. The vacancies, again, for removal for office in any other manner. The filling of vacancies, if there are 180 days or less remaining in an unexpired term, or if there are less than 180 days before the next regular city election, the commission by majority vote shall choose a qualified successor to serve until a new commissioner is elected. If there's more than 180 days, then the remaining in the unexpired term, the city election is scheduled to be within. So here, they only have the special election. You have to have the election. And they only get the appointment powers if it's close enough to the next election for that 180 days. So within 6 months. That's really what they're looking at. So if it's more than 6 months, their charter says you have to call the special election. If it's less than 6 months, you can appoint someone until the next election where someone's elected for the remaining term. It's important because when someone gets elected, they're being elected is to fill that seat on that interim basis. And because it's not going to upset the election cycle, whether you decide to elect everyone on staggered terms or all at once. And of course, that's something that I don't know was already discussed, or that's something you'll be able to discuss as far as looking for that. Because it's not like, oh, someone resigns and then they get elected and they get a brand new 4-year term out of cycle. And you can see North Lauderdale has a very, compared to the others, a more abbreviated section for all these matters. They do talk about the vacancies, how it's created in the event the remaining in a vacancy by majority vote shall choose the successor to fill the seat. It must be a resident within the district, because again, they went with districts. So whether it be at large or must be someone within the district. If a majority vote is unable to choose a successor of the vacancy within 30 days following the occurrence of the vacancy, the commission shall schedule a special election to be held not sooner than 30 days or more than 90 days from the vacancy. You can see how that's different than Margate, which says you have to have 3 meetings. Where a big difference comes into play is here's what they're talking about as far as the 30 days. Obviously, that's 1 month. But if someone says 3 meetings, well, some cities have meetings twice a month. Some have 1 a month. And some commissions also take break over the summer. So if you have a requirement in there such as 3 meetings, you must actually have a meeting to take place. And again, you need to have quorum at those meetings in order for a meeting to actually occur. So that's why you see different between the meetings versus timeframes and how these little decisions really might affect how things go later down the line. So that's kind of just a brief overview as to vacancies, how they're created, and kind of your options as to which way you want to go. So with that, I would ask you to see if there's any, questions or discussion points. And again, like I said, these are yours. And there's multiple other charters that are out there. These are just ones that I selected, for your review, so you can kind of see different styles. And I would try to get Pembroke Pines is obviously one of the largest cities. That's why I went with North Lauderdale, one of the smaller cities, both we represent, but that's also why I included Margate, which also it's not a city that we represent, and but they also are similar, have a lot of similar, size, things like that. That's what I was looking at.
How does West Park do theirs? I've been seeing signs on lawns.
I would have to look at it. I don't
Oh,
know. I don't have it memorized. I can find it though really quick if you let me. Give me a few minutes.
No, I was just curious when
Yeah.
we were driving by the other day and I seen City Commission, West Park, somebody's name, and it was on sign.
Yeah, because also we had we just recently had a midterm election. Some cities are able to have their city elections during that election, or there are also some commission seats are now also up this November. So this November they're going to have the election as well, and they're going to move forward as the way we just had, the judges, the primaries. So when that general election comes, they might have their cycle with the general election for some of their seats. Not necessarily vacancies, which we're discussing here today. They just might be on the regular election cycle, which is why you're seeing a lot of those signs. But specifically, what we're talking about here today is not the regular election cycle. This is when somebody is no longer was actually elected, and then for whatever reason can't serve the full term. And that's what we're discussing here today.
So we're just, we're just doing, we're just doing it that way. We're reading all these how the other towns do their stuff. And this is just in regards to if they quit or leave and so on and so forth.
Pretty much. You could see where you don't have a provision. So first, basically, to kind of break it down is one, I think maybe the first part of the discussion that we can have is when is a vacancy created? You can see that all the different cities that I put here basically have the same language. And that's something I would suggest that you look at as far as, I wouldn't say emulate, but as you can see that it's pretty straightforward. When someone either resigns, they're removed from office, or dies, basically, as to those are the three items. But the real big next thing, which you don't have in your charter, is if there's that forfeiture of office, that requirement to actually attend the city commission meetings. If you're going to give your town commission the ability to remove a member that is not removed in one of those three ways. So don't worry about, I would say, the specifics of the hearing. That's something that we can help with and kind of guide you through that if that's a decision. Here we're going to, I think when I spoke with Mr. Horowitz, I know we're past the 50,000 foot view, but we're not at the 10,000 foot view yet. We're kind of closer, trying to narrow that down. So I think the direction from the board that would be very helpful would be as far as making the death, resignation, removal from office as those general vacancies of how a vacancy is created, and then whether or not you want to have a forfeiture of office in there for whatever derelict of duty that commissioner, again, would have or might have or is accused of not doing, whether it be an ethics violation or whether it's not attending commission meetings, whether it be, some have 4, 3, and again, you don't have an attendance requirement. Someone could be elected and never show up again. At that point, the only removal issue the electorate has is a recall.
I have a question. So who removes them now? Say that does happen with one of the commissioners. Who removes them now from that position? What we have now.
For what you have now, they're only it would only be the removal would then be really by death, resignation, or by the state.
Oh, so they can be on their board, not do their job, and nobody even removes them except for those three things.
Yeah. So that's where the forfeiture of office comes into play, where the other members of the commission hold the outlier commissioner accountable. When I looked at the charter, I went through the whole thing. I did not see that in there, and of course you have your copies as well. But
which one of these towns, are close to what we're talking about? That
well, they all have it. If you see that, as far as that removal, for each of them, they actually all have something. Whether it be some have a more involved section in this. Again, of course, we're talking about the charter. If you look at North Lauderdale, they have a very abbreviated section on how to do that process. Some have a very detailed section of how to do that process.
Just don't have it.
You just don't have it. So one of the questions that I think is posed to you is that something that you would like to put into your charter? And on what details, I mean, I don't want to, we could get into the details tonight, but as far as a very detailed process, such as, Margate or Cooper City, or you want something a little bit more like North Lauderdale, and then the commission can then pass an ordinance as to how those are run. So there's ways, it's matters, because charter, once we redo the charter, as you know, it can only be amended by the public, by an affirmative vote of the public. So this is the governing document. This is the Constitution of the town of Pembroke Park. And the idea of this, it's supposed to be very, and extremely hard to amend. Now, it's what leverage will there be given to the commission to adopt and pass their rules by ordinance or by resolution, which is why you can see it's mentioned in there. That's why you also have it by resolution as well, is what latitude is going to be given to the future commission. Again, because this is the public's edict to its elected officials saying, this is how we want you to act, this is how we want you to run. You can figure out the details through ordinances and how you operate, and then if those need to be amended, you can amend those a lot easier. It is extremely hard to amend the charter, and this is why this is all but written in stone. So that's where it matters as having that high level versus the detailed, and how detailed we want to be in there. We can have our other discussions, but that's kind of one thing to keep in mind, that this is, the opportunity that you have on this board will affect the town for generations to come.
I'm liking the North Lauderdale version right now for me. I've been reading them. It covers vacancy upon death, resignation, and removal from office. And it also covers forfeitures. If the commissioner forfeits their office, if they lack at any time during his or her term the qualifications for the office prescribed by the charter, i.e. if they move out of their district or something like that, or if they fail to attend 4 consecutive regular meetings, so that means that they got to be there.
Yeah.
Unless they're excused, or if they're convicted in a court of competent jurisdiction of a felony or other crime involving moral turpitude. Now, I don't know if we need to put it in here, the idea that, of course, if they do something really, really bad, and the state comes after them,
You got to be removed from office. Yeah.
Jail
So
term,
far,
then,
do we
yeah,
have
no.
that problem here? Commissioner not going to meetings? Do we have that problem here?
Madam Clerk,
No, it's not that we have that issue. The problem is we've only got 3 commissioners. So if one is out, we have no meeting.
somehow we've managed to not be able to fill 2 empty seats.
Correct.
Now, as far as, I would caution you, Ms. Walker, whether you have the problem now, which you don't, you have very responsible commissioners, the 3 that are there, and we thank them for their service. It's a matter of, in 15 years, someone gets elected, yeah, and then all of a sudden, you don't want to tie the hands of everyone else because they're not showing up to meetings. Or what happens is you have, let's say one dies, right? You have the full board 5, one dies, then the other person's not showing up, and then you're down to either that 3 or you have 2 people not doing that. And also the reason why that's important is because let's just say you have a board and you have a division of opinion, whatever that division of opinion might be. And then you have 3 members, or let's say you're down to 4, whatever it is, they just don't show up to meetings. So they're going to hold the commission meetings hostage, because if they don't show up, then there's no meeting. If there's no meeting, there's no business. And now it could be a political move. Having a requirement in there that you have to be there for the meetings takes that attendance and takes that off the table.
I like that also.
I just don't want to
The
see.
thought, the
It could be
thought of
3,
having
4, 2.
somebody-
I mean, yeah, it could be, the number is whatever is decided by you, the commission, and the electorate.
Yeah, because the thought of, we have commissioners now, and they're working, okay, fine, but we don't know what we'll get later, and we might get one that says, well, I don't want to attend me, I don't want to do anything, or they can't get rid of them.
Yeah.
That's not cool, because we are paying our tax dollars to his salary, and he doesn't have to do it if he don't want to. Pretty much that's where we at now. Now,
And
crazy.
I don't want to see us in another situation where we've apparently got 2 empty seats, and somehow, according to the charter, we can't fill them. We can't have a special election. They can't be appointed. They're just empty, and because of some time thing that we let pass by, we can't fill them. Now, that's ridiculous.
Now, is that where we're currently at
That's where
here?
we're currently at.
Yeah.
Here.
How
Here.
do we solve that problem?
Well, that's what we're talking about today, as far as if you see some of them here, the other ones say that if someone's not appointed within 30 days of the vacancy, that a special election shall be held.
Must be, yeah, must be held.
Must be held. So we're looking at the language. I mean, I'm not going to give an opinion on your charter here today. That you have a great town attorney, Ms. Anderson, and I know everyone's been working very hard on all these types of issues, way beyond me. I'm the one showing up here giving the presentation, so I know there's probably 3 years of work that everyone else has done on that, so I defer to them. But looking at it for the perspective of tonight, for what we're discussing, is really looking at it from putting that into, again, all but stone, that this is what has to happen, and it can't do it, and then it puts the onus on the town, the commission, the clerk, the town manager, whatever else it is, in order to get that done, knowing, again, a special election, there's going to be a cost to that as well, and it has to be done. But again, it's the cost of doing business, it's the cost of having your own city.
If I could just say something real quick. Also, they need to take into consideration that the Broward County Elections Department is the one that would schedule a special election, and sometimes they won't, because I had that
Yes.
situation now when we were trying to see if a special election was even a possibility, and they told me flat out, no.
What was that special election for?
It was when we were trying to determine about going ahead, and since we had the 2 vacancies, to go ahead and see what were the possibilities of having a special election. And they said to me, no.
So they have the control.
Why?
There is some element of
Because
control.
it takes, there's a,
They're a
there's a
charter
whole system
officer.
that has to take, that has to take place.
Our charter does not govern the supervisor of elections. So it becomes an issue there. There's ways to work that out, which I know you've had multiple discussions, but that's not a discussion for us tonight. As far as because the charter doesn't govern the supervisor of elections. What we can do is talk about what your vision of your charter should be.
I just wanted to mention for the language. I just wanted to mention it to you about the language.
Sure, no,
So
absolutely.
if you're going to use the word shall,
It matters what the board wants. It's not that
Right.
what we decide.
Right.
It matters what the board is. So what I'm hearing from the general consensus right now is you like, I know Ms. Weber, you talked about that, you like the North Lauderdale model, having, of course, the general terms for vacancy. You like that part that's in there. You like having the what is the actual the forfeiture of office.
Language for the forfeiture, I'm liking.
Right, with the forfeiture of office, with an emphasis on meeting attendance. So, I just wanted to see if I may, Mr. Vice Chair, Mr. Schrader, did I say that right?
Yeah.
Yes.
close
All
enough.
right. Close enough. If the board's kind of in general consensus with that, Ms. Cunningham, you're nodding your head, and it looks like Ms. Walker and Mr. Schrader are also kind of in general agreement with those 2 items. That's something that we can kind of bring back and have direction. But the last item would then be as far as having that requirement as far as the appointment versus the special election, any type of days that you would want to be in there or that kind of language. It seems that you're interested, that you want to have something like that mechanism. But you could see where one has the 180 days, somebody's get the appointment. I know also in Pembroke Pines, I don't think I included that provision. It's this kind of the same, it's very similar. I don't think it's 180 days to the next election they'll appoint. Otherwise, you have to have that special election. For the next general city election, that's what happens. So what would be the board's discussion or questions on that matter?
I don't want to require the city to have a special election unless the commissioners can't agree.
Okay.
Because the elections can be, I mean, even for me in my union, holding an election is an expensive process.
Mm-hmm.
They have to be overseen, and you have to have all of that guarantee that it's honest and fair and all of that kind of stuff. So, but I do want to have a special election in there if the commissioners can agree after 90 days or 180
80
days,
days, that's like the
3
180.
months or 6 months or
Yeah.
7, then the people, you can't have the people without representation. If they can't agree within X amount of time, then we have to have a special election. We're going to have to pay for it. But I would like to see either 90 days or 180
Yeah,
days.
30
Give
days
them-
is too quick.
Yeah.
I mean, 'cause now
Yeah.
you're just
It's-
getting
that's too
anybody.
quick.
That's too fast.
Yeah, that's too fast.
Either 90 days or 180 days, and if they
Like the
can't get
180.
their crap together to
If-
figure it out by then
Mr. Vice Chair, if I may, Ms. Cunningham, the only caution I would say about 180 days is there's going to be a length of time between that line of demarcation when the board can't make the appointment and when that special election happens. So if you say 180 days, that if you can't decide for 6 months, then you have the special election. Well, the special election is going to take place another, 3 months, 4 months
From that.
from that date. They won't even start that process. So there's nothing wrong. Again, it's your choice, but I would want you to just
Looking like
realize,
almost a year.
you're
before
looking
you
at
get
your-
somebody.
especially when you have some supervisors will say no, or they're going to wait till the next election. So as far as looking at that time frame, know that there is a back end time frame. If you're looking to have that election with 180 days, then that's something that we can discuss about putting in there, saying that
Like 90 days or something.
right. Well, you can decide whatever you would like. You could say that after 90 days, you have to hold a special election. You can say that you have to hold a special election within 6 months, unless an appointment is made earlier. You could say something like that. So there's different ways to look at it as to which way you wanted to do it, because one would allow the commission to make an appointment up until the 11th hour, or at least up until it's scheduled. Then you have another one where once you schedule the election, they lose the power of appointment, because you're going to have an election. Because once you're going to make that commitment, you can't appoint anyone anymore. People are going to have campaigns. You're going to put the invest. You're going to pay. You have to schedule the election, advertise the election. Obviously, have the poll workers do if you have any mail ballots. I mean, it's a regular election. So there's different ways to think about it. It's a lot to think about, and we can help draft your vision. We just need to know what vision that is, and it's really tough when you're saying sky's the limit, which it almost is, but that's where I'm here to try and help focus your views. And again, you don't have to make a decision tonight. You can, but you don't have to. Or even if you make a decision tonight, you want to change your mind later, you can still do that too. So, and that's where I'm happy to help answer and help guide you to where you want to go.
So the 2 seats that we have now, how long they've been vacant?
I don't know. The only thing is I really would want to focus our discussion on where, for the charter, I'm not prepared, nor can I give an opinion as to what's going on right now. Okay.
So we can decide tonight which one of these routes or other cities have, and then we can do that and then nitpick at it
Later.
Later?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like the long-
Yeah, we're and that's why you can have this. You can look at again. Other cities have things that are different. This is just a sample.
But eventually, we have to, like, say, for instance, we decide to go with the North Lauderdale one. We're going to nitpick that, each one in a certain area?
Absolutely,
Make it specific for us. Yeah.
absolutely. And
Yes.
and let me be clear.
But we're not, we evidently can't do that tonight, right?
You want to? It's your call.
I mean, we're,
Well, here, let me, if I may, Mr. Vice Chair, what our intention is at this point is, I'm obviously taking notes. I'm going to go back, speak with Mr. Horowitz as to where we are, what the board, if you want to take a vote tonight, you can, or just do it by consensus. We'll have that general direction on which way that you want to go. Then it's our anticipation at a future meeting within relatively short amount of time, we're going to put pen to paper based on the direction that you gave in prior meetings as well as the direction of this meeting and present to you a document. And then at that point, that would be the time to go through and nitpick each little word, every aspect, to give you a working document that you can then decide which way you want to go. But these discussions are helping us give you a working document that's on the right path. So we want to give you something that within the range, within the scope of your discussions, and not something that's 180 degrees from what you're looking for. And it's our intention to do that relatively soon, and then start really drilling down and creating a brand new document for you to actually review, as you say, nitpick, and go through and we can edit and wordsmith. Here it's just kind of really what you're looking for as to, again, the forfeiture of office. I have that written down as far as we know that, at least from the discussion, that you want to put in there an attendance requirement. That's something we can do. Then when we bring it back, we could put in there 4, and then you decide you really just want, 3 consecutive meetings. Or maybe just 3 meetings in a calendar year. That's there. We have one that says consecutive meetings. The other, you could have it say, no, it's 3 meetings in the calendar year. Whether it be one, doesn't have to be in a row. We still want you there. So all these words, especially in a charter, are incredibly powerful. And the time to nitpick will absolutely be given because you need that. And we want to give that to you, but I want to be able to, I don't want to give you a document that's missing something that you're really looking for, and then it adds more time because then we have to come back, add that in, instead of you giving that chance to review.
so what we're discussing now is 7.1.
Correct.
Okay, we're going to be discussing 7.2.
You are?
That we haven't yet.
Not yet.
Okay, so do we need to make a motion? Does somebody need to make a motion on 7.1 before we go to 7.2?
Not necessarily. If the board wants to make that direction clear, you can. I can, like I said, through the consensus of, from what I have, really the only other thing that I'm missing is, it does seem that you want that special election requirement. And if you want to kind of give me direction as to that 30 or 180 days, or just kind of take from what I'm hearing, come up with something, and then you can look at it later. So,
Is one or the other 30 days or 180? No in between?
We can do 90.
of course,
No,
no,
whichever. He's
absolutely,
saying
that's it. There isn't in between. Absolutely.
And we
thank you,
can
Ms. Walker.
decide 90 now and come back later and decide we want to do 30 instead.
Right. I would say, have the day requirement over a meeting requirement, because you don't want, you want to keep it as succinct as you can. And when you're having, because at that point you're going to have disagreements. You're going to have and a lot of times things happen when there's a major issue on the board. And if, let's just say, and this is coming out of nowhere, right? So there's nothing on the table. I don't know anything, but what could really happen is you have a vacancy on the board. You have 2-2. Someone needs to make an appointment, and there's a pending major development application. Whatever that may, 100-story buildings, somewhere going somewhere. And all of a sudden, that appointment, you have 2 commissioners that want the buildings and 2 commissioners that are voting against it. That that last seat becomes very powerful very quickly. And what you'll have is, unfortunately, situations that arise where they don't want to appoint someone because they know where they're going to sit they know their position on that one particular item, and it's going to go one way or another, and then hilarity ensues. So that really what you want to be careful. And again, I just juxtapose that extreme situation, but extremely similar matters have happened before. So that's where having these rules are important, and as well as the timing of it can be important. And you don't know how it's going to work out. Maybe that never happens, but it can. So, I would suggest something maybe more on an expedited time frame, because you don't want that seat vacant. So as far as having that decision either made 30 or 60 days, or if you want 90, of course 90, looking at it again between how many meetings you have a month, and also if you take a break for summer, or sometimes there are some commissions that will have 2 meetings, every month, but then November, December, there's only 1. So
What is the standard on all that? Different cities, I mean, as far as meetings or how many or,
generally, that's not in the charter, how often they have meetings. Well, they will put in there like,
is or isn't?
well, as far as they will have the meetings, at least once a month. You'll have that requirement or 2 there, unless there's a vote taken by the commission, because if there's no, they'll vote to either cancel or combine meetings. Some will have in there as far as 2 a month in the charter, unless otherwise decided by the city commission. Again, some of the holidays you might, or if you're going to have 3 commissioners out of town, they'll cancel a meeting or combine them into one. Again, you're looking at November, December for a lot of those things. Most cities have 2 meetings a month, but some do have 1, with the ability to always call a special meeting, whether it be by the mayor or I think it's 2 members or 3 members. Again, it could be whatever it is of the city commission can make that request. Keeping in mind sunshine issues, but make the request for a special meeting, and then you can hold a special meeting on whatever the issue might be. So there's provisions for that. So what I'm going to do at this point, I think we have a good consensus on the first 2 items. As far as I have a general consensus on the last one, that you want the ability to appoint, and then you want to then move to a special election. But the timing of those items seem to be, you want a little bit more time to think about. Would that be a correct assessment?
For me, yes.
Of course. And there's no rush. There's not a process where we're going to say make a decision tonight. But this will allow us to put something, bringing it back, and then if we put in, 30 or, just put in numbers for you to look at and change, I don't want the board, not that I want, it would be, I don't want the board to ever think that we're substituting our judgment for yours. That's what my concern is. So if we fill something in just so we can have something for you, I always want to put your judgment in that document over anything else. So with that,
Do we have kind of like a consensus between us, how many days we'd like, so you could write it down?
I would go err on the side of less days than more, because again, once you set up the special election and then you're dragging it out, I would say 60 or 90. For me, that would be reasonable. 60 or 90 days. And again, if we,
Yes, it goes like this. Time goes like this.
yeah, but 60 days is 2 months, 90 days is 3 months. That's still a long time to be missing a seat. And it only goes into effect if the commissioners can't
come up with a
decision on their own.
Yeah.
This is basically kicking the pants and telling them they got to get this done.
can I make I guess from listening from what the board,
Those vacancies.
yeah, if listening to what the board's saying and taking just into account, I'm just kind of taking everyone's opinion, merging it together. What it sounds like is you're saying that whether the board should have that 60 or 90 days to make an appointment, unless there's going to be a special election within the 180 days. So they can make the appointment. Well, regardless, what you're saying, regardless, they can make the appointment. But I've heard the 6-month number come out a lot. So it would be they can make the appointment within that 60 or 90 days. If they can't make the appointment, to have a special election within 180 days, unless there's a general election, following that. So there's you still have some extended time frame. You still have the recognition if there's an upcoming general election, and the city commission gets to appoint regardless. And if they can't decide, then it goes to the special election. If there is one upcoming within 6 months, then they get to appoint so you can get city business done. But then that seat goes on goes on the regular election.
Regular election
Yeah.
ballots.
Okay.
You guys agree?
And again, that's one of the advantages. Again, it's up to you if you want to make a motion, but having at least the general consensus and choosing not to make that motion, you're not making any formal action. So without any formal action, I can take that direction and come back with something, and there's nothing in the minutes or the record that a motion was made or passed. So even though you can still change your mind either way, it's even less official because you don't have a vote. Well, that's kind of what I'm hearing is where one might be. And then also, actually, for the record, I at least want to also put on the record that there's no one here for any type of public comment or public input. But of course, they'll be able to do so throughout the entire process. But as far as I want to put on the record that we're not calling or letting anyone else speak because no one's here. So with that, Mr. Vice Chair, if there's any other discussion on 7.1, I can move to 7.2.
Would anybody like to make a motion regarding 7.1?
What we've been discussing. Yeah.
Right.
How to fill them.
Like the Lauderdale to the North Lauderdale.
To be frank, all of them have something good in there, to be honest.
Yeah.
Honest, I mean, Cooper City one is just nice and neat and, I mean, not complicated, I mean, and I don't get a chance to read them all, but, I mean, as you said,
You have a unique opportunity, and I know that the charter hasn't been amended for some time. So
what it is,
the unique opportunity that you have is you can look at other charters or other cities that have worked well or things that they've
so
tried to
basically,
change.
we don't have one like this. We don't have one. That's what you're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, we
No,
don't
we don't have
have
one.
it. Ours just can sit there forever and be paid for nothing.
Pardon?
Commissioners can sit there and be paid for doing nothing.
Or the seat can sit empty
Yeah,
for
and
a year or 2
Yeah.
years.
Okay, guys, let's. Everybody else have something in like this, and we don't.
Yeah.
Well, like he said, we could vote on one of these and then nitpick it as time goes by, you know?
We pick it by going through these.
Well, I'm gathering what he's saying is that when we come back for the next meeting, hopefully they will have written, this law firm will have written up something based on our discussions today. And then we can take that and see what we want to do with it.
I know that Ms. Anderson and Mr. Horowitz have talked about a time frame. We are going to bring something back to you, whether it be at the next meeting or the meeting after.
Yeah.
But they are discussing exactly that time frame. But if at all possible, I know that they want to have something
Yeah.
by early next year in order for us to kind of take a look at and try and get on the earliest possible ballot, if possible. It's a very aggressive time frame, but it's one that's what's being eyed and discussed. I don't know much more than that. I don't want to. I know they're having those discussions, but we are looking at that and plan to bring something back to you and on an expedited basis.
Yeah, basically everything what we decided yesterday, or last meeting about mayors and commissioners and do we vote, all of that. And then this meeting where we're doing vacancies and charter officers, but none of that is final. When they come back with a document, then because a lot of this stuff bears on each other. And sometimes, I mean, for me, I don't necessarily realize when I'm voting on this one that 2-3 months down the line, there's another issue that's going to come up that's going to have bearing on this. So we can always go back and fix it when we say, oh, well, I didn't realize that was part of it too.
And
So
that's-
nothing we decide is written, it's written in stone yet.
Yeah.
So again, would anybody like to make a motion?
Mr. Vice Chair, I think we have a direction of where the current members want to see these particular provisions. And I'm comfortable at this moment if no one wants to make a motion. I think the general consensus and the discussion of the board was detailed and sufficient that we can bring something back that we have the direction, because we're going to bring something back and to something that is going to be within that, again, that general direction of what the board is looking for.
All right. All right, we're going to 7.2 now?
Sure. So 7.2 is discussion of possible action regarding whether certain town officials should be considered charter officers who report directly to the town commission. So when we wrote this, does that sound, pretty easy? Absolutely. Is it more complicated? Of course it is. Yes. So when we're talking about charter officers, these are positions that are actually created in the charter. So one of the positions, as you talked about before, was going to a town manager form. Right now, you have the commissioners actually have certain responsibilities, as far as how the town is run. Most cities do have the commission town manager form of government. And you have some other cities like Lighthouse Point that have a strong mayor, and they have a town administrator that reports to the mayor. The mayor's elected, but doesn't get a vote on the commission. You have some strong mayors that do get a vote on the commission. Or you have the town manager who is hired by the city commission. Obviously, there's no vote because they're not elected, and they run the day-to-day operations of the town. And it's my understanding that that's kind of where the board was leaning at its prior meetings, was going more to that town commission, town manager form of government. So the question really here is, we know that the town manager is going to be a charter officer, someone that's going to be in the charter, and it's going to be hired by the city commission, the town commission. Now, that all these officers that we're talking about are positions that are created. Another one that I would strongly suggest that you put in the charter is the city attorney. You want to have the city attorney be hired and directly report to the town commission. Because when city attorneys give legal advice to the commission, it might be not exactly what staff wants or what the city manager might want. But again, we're always going to report, including whether myself or Ms. Anderson or any firm or anyone else, we're always going to give you what the law is, not necessarily what you want to hear. So we want to be able to keep you out of trouble. So having that accountability to the commission versus to the town manager. Now, when you have department directors, let's say you have your Parks and Rec director, that's not going to be in the charter. Those are going to be directors hired by the town manager. Town manager may create the Parks and Recreation department. There's a lot of cities that under community development, community services, Parks and Recreation is included under that. That's up to the town manager on how they want to create their office and how they want to run the city. And things change. So it's not actually in the charter. They can do that as far as utility directors or anything else it might be. Now, again, those are at least the two that I would extremely strongly and highly, I can use some other words, but I think I'm making my point that at least the city attorney and the town manager report to the commission. And it's up to you as far as regarding, you only really need those two. There are other cities that the city clerk is actually appointed by the commission. And then even further on that, like North Lauderdale has that, whereas the commission that hires the city clerk, whereas in Pembroke Pines, the city clerk is hired by the city manager.
Which is what we're doing here,
No.
currently, yeah.
No. I'm hired by the commission.
You're hired by the what?
The
Commission.
So, the finance director, you have some cities where the finance director reports to the city, is hired or by the city commission. There's also in Cooper City where the city commission has to approve all the directors. Now, it really matters what you want as far as how much authority that the commission is going to have getting into personnel matters or not. You can see also what I included in this presentation as we go through are non-interference clauses for the commission. Now, why are non-interference, what are non-interference clauses and why are they in the charter? They basically say that commissioners cannot get involved in the day-to-day business of the city. They can't pick up the phone and call the code enforcement director and say, you need to put a violation on someone's house. You can't throw and say, well, there's no and when someone feels intimidated, employees can feel, though they have to do something to appease the commissioner, where the non-interference clause in there is it holds the commission responsible for those actions. They don't get involved in day-to-day business. Now, why was that something that you would be interested in? The town commission generally sets policy. They pass the laws of the city, the ordinances. They say, this is what we want done. This is the policy that we are setting for our city. We then turn to the city manager and say, it's now up to you to implement that policy. And those decisions, you're the CEO of the city, go implement the policy. And if you can't implement that policy, well, then the city commission is not going to fire the utility, manager on the street trying to fix the pipe. They're going to hold the city manager accountable. And because they can hire and fire the city manager, they can't hire and fire the utilities director. So that's where, but again, that stops them from calling the utilities director and say, well, make sure, let's say there's an issue, make sure water to my streets first. No, it goes with whatever they decide on how they operate the city. Or, I have particular interest in this area, make sure that they're treated differently than someone else. It's not something that we want. Therefore, the commission doesn't have that ability to interfere with the day-to-day government of operations of the city. But that's also why, if you watch other commission meetings, they ask the city manager questions, and the city manager is the one. And as far as actually the formality of it, they don't ask staff. The commission asks the city manager. The city manager will then turn to his staff, and he'll call on the staff member to come up and answer the question. And at that point, what is actually legally or operationally happening is the city manager is now directing his staff to respond to the commission concern. Staff is not responding directly. And if the city manager wants to say, I'll look into it and report back, the city manager will look into it and report back. Of course, the city manager is not going to be able to know every little thing, but that's what staff is for. Staff reports to him or her, and then that person reports to the city commission.
I have a question for you.
Sure.
Who is the city manager under? If the commission, who hires the city manager, and who does this city manager? Because the way that you're explaining is like this city manager has a lot of control, and he pretty much can do whoever,
Right.
pretty much can do whatever they want in the city.
The city commission. Well, again, that's what the charter. The charter says that the city commission hires the city manager.
But they don't have any control on.
They can hire the city manager. They can fire the city manager.
If he doesn't do what they want, they fire him. He's not an elected official.
Or her.
Or her, sorry.
So who do we have? You said her. Do we have a city
We have
manager?
a man. We have a guy.
The guy.
You have a town administrator.
He
yes.
spoke to us. Remember when the code enforcers was here?
But
was-
I don't want to go into a long story, but the town manager supposed to work together
Well,
with.
right now, and let me kind of explain where it says here that the commission shall have, this is your charter, the commission shall have the power to designate, create offices, departments, and divisions other than those provided herein for the necessary administration of the city. Going to section 13, all powers of the city except the mayor. The commission may ordinance recognize any other power. The commission, you do have, here's the commission may determine by own rule of procedure to punish members for misconduct. That's the only thing you have in there. And then you also have, regarding from our last discussion, but creation of departments. The handling of the government, the commission shall create the following departments, and one commissioner shall have charge of each department. Executive, Department of Taxes, the commission in charge there of the clerk. Department of Finance, commission in charge of be the vice mayor for the Department of Health and Zoning. So right now, you kind of have a commissioner in charge of each individual department instead of that one person in charge of, again, this is just by the document. Maybe it's operating a little differently. So that's where the other direction as far as going to a very clear city commission, city manager form of government And the discussion here is from that is which officers are going to be hired and report directly to the city commission. Would that be the city attorney, the auditor reports to the city commission because they're going to audit staff and the manager. You don't want them reporting to well, no, you don't want that. You may not want them reporting to the manager. You want them reporting directly to the city commission. When you have the auditor, same thing as the city attorney and the town manager. Other cities do have, as you have here, you have the city clerk that is hired by the city commission. And again, this is also hire, this is fire, this is negotiate salary, this is raises, this is everything. So, it's all the personnel decisions that are made. Some have another, one of the reasons why I also included Margate was specifically for the reason that they actually just amended their charter, where they also have the police chief and the fire chief report directly to the city commission. And actually that amendment, we were interim city council for the city of Margate a number of years ago. I think it was like 4 or 5 years ago. And that's something that they wanted, and that was a recent change to their charter. Through their last charter amendment, they added that in there. So now a lot more officers report directly to the commission, and that was decided by the city of Margate and the electorate of that's what they wanted to do. Now, understanding that we have a lot of different contract for services, but that's one thing that another city decided regarding police and fire. So it matters which way that you would want to go, or think about which officers report directly to the city commission. I would strongly suggest that the simplest way to do it would be the town manager, the town attorney, and the auditor. Or when audits happen or the audits hired directly by the city commission, they report to the commission. I would then strongly suggest that you consider the time and effort for a lot of the other positions, whether it be finance or Cooper City approves all the hires of the city commission of the manager. They choose to get involved in those day-to-day activities. I would caution you on a town, again, Cooper City is also smaller in size as well. But as far as how much power and authority you want to give the commission to have over that day-to-day government, which then leads us to that non-interference clause. Because if it's not spelled out in the charter that they're allowed to get involved in those matters, the non-interference clause makes it clear they can't do anything else.
Just one quick thing. I'm just going to let you guys know that we have about 15 minutes because they closed the back gates.
Okay.
That is like
Oh,
7 o'clock.
we didn't even realize this.
I apologize if I'm being too long-winded.
That's all right.
No, you're fine. You're fine.
If you want, I'll tell Mr. Hoare, you can request that I never come back.
No, I agree with what you're saying. City manager, sitting attorney. I'm the auditor for my local, my union. So I can tell you basically the auditor doesn't answer to anybody but the board. Because I'm auditing the president's accounts. I'm auditing the business
Right.
manager's travel records.
Right.
So the auditor answers to the highest authority, whatever that is. I would like to see the city clerk as a charter officer as well. I believe the city clerk's office is something that needs to report to the commission directly, as opposed to reporting to the city manager or the city attorney or something.
Yeah, and like you look here, you have
The city clerk. I would like to, in addition to the city manager, the city attorney, and the auditor, I'd like to see the city clerk answer directly to the commission, and with no
So the clerk and the attorney.
clerk and attorney, the manager, and a position called auditor. I don't know if we even have an auditor in this town. Do we have an auditor?
We don't have a position that's an auditor, but we have to have an auditor company that does our
So we
audits.
source out.
We have to go
out the work.
source
outside
it out.
to get it,
Yeah, but that person would then report to the commission. Right.
Which is best anyway when you're audited. Have
and there is
outside person.
statutes as far as required audits that you have to do
Yeah.
and things like that as far as making the report. And then again, at that point, you have the commission actually is the one that reviews in the contract. But that's really what it comes down to, is to making sure that whether if the contract, let's say it's only, $5,000, that no matter what, it still goes to city commission.
Right.
For that aspect. And another thing to consider, as we go on the part of our time, is would you want to see a majority or supermajority vote? As far as hiring and firing. A lot of times it could be the same, it can also be different. It could be 3 to hire, it could be 3 votes to hire and 4 votes to fire. It could also just be, supermajority, making sure the majority agrees on anything, or a lot of people just takes 3 votes, you're out. City manager, 3 votes, you're gone. City attorney, 3 votes, you're gone. So you see some talk about 4/5 vote for the appointment. Firing could be 3, or you can have all the same. And again, it's up to you. There's no right, there's no wrong. That's why we're here. So what I at least hear for the general consensus is that if we could do something with the auditor, we'll take a look to see how we do that, but maybe creating that as a charter officer, maybe. Do the city manager, city attorney, reporting to the commission. And I know Ms. Weber wants to see the city clerk directly, and that's fine as well. I know Ms. Walker or Ms. Cunningham and Vice Chair Schrader, I don't know how you feel on that issue. If you have some cities like North Lauderdale, it's the city clerk, the salary is negotiated. They're directly hired by the commission. And you also have, Pembroke Pines, a large city where the city manager hires it. There's nothing wrong with either way. But just be mindful that any hiring or firing of any of these officials that we're talking about is going to be done in a public process. So as far as the negotiation of the contract, the negotiating of the salary, the negotiating of the benefits. Of course, at the end of the day, everything we do is in the public. All that information is publicly available. But the difference is a lot of these discussions happen at a public meeting rather than between the city manager and staff. So when it comes to the city clerk, there are negotiations that take place. I think in North Lauderdale, I believe the mayor handles the negotiations. But once you have and this with the city manager for the city clerk, but then once they kind of come to some agreement, then it still goes to city commission. But it's just a matter of having all those people involved into that negotiation. And again, there's nothing wrong with it. Just be aware. So having the city clerk, with that. And then at that point, again, it would take 3, in order for the city clerk to be hired or fired, it would take an affirmative vote of the city commission, whether it be 3 votes or 4. Or unanimous, even if you require that. I would advise against it, though.
My opinion is
even I can say even for city attorney, even for any officer, unanimous decision. Of course, I wouldn't. You're pretty much guaranteeing someone to be there for a very long time.
Now, my thoughts on the city commission hiring the clerk. I mean, I guess I don't get that. You got to go show your resume to the commission?
Well, I mean, the
I
same
mean, to
way,
me,
the
it's
same
how-
way the commission would hire the city manager or the city attorney or the
Yep.
auditor. It's the same thing.
Yep.
I mean,
It's the city clerk. I mean,
but that's it. Is that all we're talking about? We're not talking about hiring the sewer guy.
no,
through the city
no,
com-
that's the point. That's the point. Yeah,
That's
no,
exactly what we're talking about. Is because right now the commissioners are in charge of all the different departments.
Yeah.
Here,
I mean, pretty soon you got, we got to have a commission meeting that we need to, we lost one of our sewer guys that we need to hire
We
one.
hire the head of the
Yeah.
department. The head of the department answers to the commission,
Right.
but then everybody who works for that department answers to the head. I just would like to add this department, the
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
city
yeah,
clerk
yeah.
department. 'Cause-
Well, that I agree with, but.
Yeah, that would,
I mean,
for-
just,
you would make the report to the commission. It wouldn't be somebody who works for you.
right, the deputy clerk or any of the deputy clerks would then be hired by. We could put in there, either hired by the clerk or hired by the city manager. And it's the clerk and only the clerk that reports to the city commission, unless you want something otherwise.
Yeah.
But right now you have specifically is, again, looking just at the document, not saying what actually occurs, because I'm unaware, and not saying anything's wrong either. I'm not saying anything's wrong, because we understand that a lot of things that are in the charter are antiquated, which is exactly why we're having these discussions. is each commission is in charge of a certain department. So the other thing that before we close for tonight is I would also strongly suggest that you consider putting in that, or suggesting to us to put in that non-interference clause, which you could see for each of these things here where it's under prohibitions. Talking about appointments and removals, here I just have them in front of me. Under, it's on page 9 at the bottom, section 3.09 prohibitions under B. Except for purpose of inquiries and investigations, commissioners or members shall deal with city officers. The commission or its members shall deal with city officers and employees who are subject to the direction and supervision of the city manager solely through the manager. Solely through the manager. And really, so you don't have that one commissioner picking up the phone and telling officials to do something. All of the direction goes through the city manager, so you have that separation between the executive and the administrative. Correct. And then you can see also, City of Margate has the commission or any of its members shall direct or request the appointment of any person removal from office by the city manager or any of his subordinates in a manner to take part in the department. The commission as members shall deal with the administrative service solely through the city manager. So, and again, that's really that separation, so the city commission or the town commission sets the policy, the manager implements the policy. You don't end around the manager, but the manager doesn't set forth the policy. The commission holds the manager responsible. And that's also why it takes either 3 or 4 votes of the city commission, because if you have 4 members of the city commission that feel strongly one way, then the one commissioner who feels differently can't pick up the phone and have a city employee do something different than what the board decided. Because then that person is now what that person's doing is, putting in their direction rather than the representation of the board as elected by the citizens and residents of the great town of Pembroke Park. So I think I might have not only used all our time, but it's a lot to digest. By hearing the size of the board, hopefully I was helpful. I'm worried I was I wasn't helpful at all.
Yeah.
But so with that, I think we have Mr. Vice Chair. I think a general direction as to both 7.1 and 7.2.
Okay.
At this point, I would ask that the board kind of take some of these things under consideration. I can take some of the comments of the board and the general consensus of the board, report back to Ms. Anderson and Mr. Horowitz as to kind of where you're heading.
It wasn't anymore. I'm confused.
Sure. What?
I thought Miss Anderson wasn't anymore. She's still here, but she's
Melissa Anderson is the city attorney.
okay.
Not doing
She's not doing this. Okay.
Right, because we're coming in to help give that outside point of view. But I mention her, and the way that I do is knowing that we are always work in conjunction with your city attorney. That is not something that we're ever going to do outside or, beyond her. We're happy to work with Ms. Anderson. She's very knowledgeable. She's a great attorney, and she's a wonderful person. So I wanted to always recognize her position and her authority, and that we are here to help and assist the board move that forward. And as far as also when this item eventually goes to city commission, we're doing the drafting, we're doing everything else. But when it goes to the town commission for that final approval, we will be there, but as well as Ms. Anderson will be there on the board, advising the board as well.
I would like to know, I'll get a full layout of, because since everything rests on the town manager, I would like to know what are his responsibility and how involved he is with everything.
In a city manager, city council form of government, they pretty much run the city. They're the CEO. They're the CEO of the city. Every employee reports to them, except the ones we're talking about here that we're going to specifically state report to the city commission. So that's really the brass tacks of it, is everyone reports to the city manager. The city manager is in charge of hiring and firing all employees unless specifically stated in the charter, which we are discussing today to be the auditor, the manager, the town manager, the attorney, and the clerk.
Town manager is the head, and he can hire and fire the commissioner and everybody?
No, not the commission.
Okay,
No, not the commission.
everything else.
Everything else.
Working in the
And
city.
not the other officers that we're talking about, right? He can't hire the auditor, he can't hire and fire the auditor,
Okay.
because they,
Yes.
that's what we're
Right.
talking about.
The city commission, or the town, I'm trying. The commission hires the city manager. The city manager runs the city based on what the board as the collective state the policies to be. Then the town manager is the one that directs and coordinates staff to implement that vision. The only, they're responsible to the commission, and it happens when, let's just say, 3 new commissioners come in, and they want to clean house. They fire the city manager, they fire the city attorney, they fire the city clerk, and they hire all new people. Can that happen?
That's the commission.
Yes, because the commission are the ones that are elected by the people, and it is always the people's will that's important. So they would be the highest authority, but they then hire those officers to implement their vision, but then they don't get involved in the day-to-day activities to make sure to protect everyone from any type of impropriety. Does that help, Ms. Walker?
Yeah, I got it.
Okay, excellent. I want to make sure that I'm clear, because one of my jobs is to help you understand so you can make the choice. So with that, Mr. Vice Chair, unless there's any other questions.
Would, the next meeting is scheduled for October 24th. Everybody fine with that? Okay,
That's the last Monday in the month?
I don't think so.
think
I
the
think
reason-
Halloween's on a Monday,
Right, that's why we moved it.
trick or treat. All right,
So we said October what?
24th.
24th.
yeah. I make a motion, a motion to adjourn?
All in favor?
Well, well,
Adjournment,
Mr. Vice
7.
Chair, as the chair, we can adjourn the meeting, but as the chair, you can't actually make a motion.
Yeah, right, yeah, I know that, yeah.
Then I'll make the
No,
motion.
I said that. I
No,
said
all
that.
in favor.
But we
Oh, I can't make a motion.
But you could just say all in favor. and
All in
whoever says
favor of
aye.
adjourning?
Yeah.
Aye.
Form
That's
anyway.
it.
Opposed?
Thank you so much for having me.
I'll take